estates is a crucial part of your gameplay in EU5. I would say it's even much more crucial than the management of the estates in EU4, because here you actually have living people and there's so many more modifiers that you have in mind when doing so. EU5 has 7 estates, where there are 4 main estates that pretty much everyone has: clergy, nobility, burghers and peasants, and then there will be also some situational estates appearing for some of the countries like tribes, dhimmi and Cossacks. In this video I will show you what impacts power of the estates, what impacts their satisfaction, what kind of privileges you should aim to give to them, how they are being taxed, what kind of budget they have and what kind of demand. At the end also some overall tips just to achieve success with your estates. So first of all, every person, every pop in your country will be part of one of the estates, what you will be seeing in the People's tab, where obviously majority of your population will be among peasants, among which we also count laborers and soldiers. There will be a bit much less of the burghers, even less of the clerics, and very little of nobles. That's in general the expectation, but over the time of the game you might actually shape differently these percentages to some extent. So first of all, estates power calculation. This is looking crazy, but in general the estate's power will be calculation of the power from each of your locations. What will be taken into account in that calculation is amount of the people in that specific estate, where obviously 1 million of peasants is not worth as much as 1 million of nobles, so each of the estates has a conversion between amount of the people and amount of the power they give, and then that summed up amount of the people in the location will be impacted by the local modifiers, which is usually buildings. For example, castles increasing local nobles' power by 100%, while merchants' guilds, which is a specific estate's building, is increasing the burghers' power. There will be obviously also buildings that you can build for your own crown, like a counting house that will be increasing crown power in that specific location. Once we get power summed up from all of the locations, then we're gonna impact this by the global modifiers. So you know, each of your estates, including your crown estate, will be having modifiers impacting that from the laws, from the privileges, gantry forms, your ruler's admin ability, who is in command of your armies and navies, who is in your cabinet. Over time you'll be also presented with more and more advances that will be steadily improving your crown power and giving you more ways to improve it. So you know, this way you'll move from late feudal country in early game to absolutist monarchy in the late game. Obviously if that's your choice, because you're not forced to do that. Once we sum up then the political power of everyone, like for example you see in this Florence it's 3.1 thousand, each of the estates will be having a split on it, giving them these percentages that you see on the screen. Now depending if that power of specific estate is below or above 25%, you'll be getting different bonuses or maluses. Starting with the crown power, you see these are the scaling modifiers you'll be getting for being above 25%. Really great bonuses, including even other estate satisfaction. To be honest, it should be the other way around. So if there's high crown power, this should be not happy about it. But yeah, this is what it is in the current game. And when you drop below 25% of the crown power, you'll be getting all of this terrible maluses. So yeah, definitely one of my recommendations, to try to not go below 25% of your crown power, or at least stay around it if you want to have it low. How about the estates? Well, if their power is below 25%, you are gonna receive a higher maximum tax that you can pulse on them. Like you see, for example here, commoners with 4% of the power can be taxed 10% more, while the clergy being at 18% of the power can be taxed at 1.6% more. When a specific estate's power is beyond 25%, it's actually gonna give you a series of bonuses where burghers give you additional navy maintenance decrease, trade capacity, and societal value, and you see in each of these states there will be a societal value impact. Nobility will give you levy, combat efficiency, and fort limit, while clergy will give you pop conversion speed and stable investment cost. I actually don't even know what peasants give because I've never seen it in game being that high, and it's not even the wiki yet. Okay, so this was the power. How about satisfaction? Well, satisfaction will be having two parts to it: current satisfaction, as well as the satisfaction equilibrium. Towards each of the estate satisfactions will be going towards. What impacts your estate satisfaction equilibrium? Where it is a bit different base value for each of the estates. Like you see here, nobility has 40%, clergy has 30%, burghers have 50%. Then, on top of the base value for your country, obviously how much you tax estate is gonna impact this, various privileges for this and other estates, your government reforms, your societal values, how much stability you have, so that might be very important, as well as your crown power, which I mentioned before, your ruler's diplomatic ability, and obviously over time more advances and more sources that might impact this. Quick tip: if you want to increase your satisfaction of a specific estate immediately to like avoid a rebellion or get specific bonus, you might bribe them, which is gonna cost a lot. It was nerfed compared to the beta patches. You might give them an estate privilege, which is gonna instantly increase their satisfaction and decrease satisfaction of all the other estates. You might call a parliament debate for that specific estate's issue, and then their equilibrium is gonna increase much faster. It's not gonna be immediate impact. Or take agenda for the specific estates in the parliament. So that's gonna also immediately increase their satisfaction and decrease satisfactions of all the other estates. How much satisfaction an estate has is gonna impact multiple things. First of all, there will be scaling up and down bonuses for your country. Like you see, patricians will give you prestige and counter espionage when beyond 50%. Below 50% is gonna be same but negative modifiers. Clergy, and that's a very important one, is gonna give you monthly usage, progress, and diplomatic reputation. Burghers will give you trade advantage and production efficiency, while commoners will give you food production, levy recovery, and stable investment cost. That levy recovery was just boosted very recently in the last patch. Current satisfaction of the estate is gonna also impact satisfaction of your location. So you see, for example, that the nobles here are receiving extra 12% satisfaction in that specific location because of their global satisfaction of the estate. What's very important, because it's not mentioned anywhere in game, I think, is that when specific estate satisfaction is below 25%, you're not gonna be able to recruit levies from them. So do have that in mind when you declare a war. And when it's below 1%, and that's usually visible, and it's a rare case, when it's below 1%, you cannot tax the estate. Another thing that the satisfaction is impacting is what do these estates do with their money? Because you see, when you hover on any of these estates, you see how much money they have, how much they make monthly, from where the money is coming, and where their expenses are going into. Because, you know, each of these states have their own demands. So, you know, everything that you produce in your markets, right, they will be going into the states, into their demands. And that's why you often need like fine cloth or jewelry in your market, because your estates do want that. So what they spend that money on is obviously, first of all, trading, like to buy goods in the market. But then they'll be also doing constructions, which you'll be seeing as estate constructions, right? And what the estate is gonna construct is also gonna depend on their satisfaction. When the satisfaction is below 50%, you'll be sure they'll just build their own buildings, like tall castle here coming from the nobility, which is usually a building that gives them more possible people of that estate in the location to increase their power, and also percentage increase of their power. Often it is also gonna impact how much food they use. If the satisfaction is between 50 and 80%, there's gonna be a roll if it's gonna be a positive or negative building. And when it is beyond 80%, you'll be sure that all the money they spent will be positive buildings. Like you see over here, burghers building roads for me, or Potter's Guild. So they'll be usually trying to build buildings to fill a demand in the market. And if you wonder from where that money is even coming that estates are having, well, this is a simple calculation. You have a location, right? That location is gonna have some control. So for example, if this location's control is 73%, it means that 27% of this location's produced money, base tax, is gonna go into vain, is gonna disappear. So you see, from 51 of potential tax base, this location has 37 of base tax. And then that 37 base tax is gonna be split between the estates and your own country, depending on the taxations that you are having. So you see, patricians, clergy, burghers and commoners make this amount of money, and then from this amount of the money you take your taxes, just like here. And whatever is left for these estates after taxes is the money that they make. So having in mind everything that I mentioned already, and the next question probably you are having is, okay, so how do I handle the estate privileges? Well, my general goal when giving the estate privileges is to give privileges that give satisfaction to that specific estate, while not increasing their influence too much. Like for example here for the nobility, we see there's an estate privilege for 5% satisfaction and only 20% of the increased power. That's the first thing that I look at. But obviously then there'll be also specific bonuses or maluses that the privilege is gonna be giving. Like here, cultural influence, it is okay, but mostly the goal of this privilege, for example, that I gave was just this two. Or you see this privilege giving, 50 powers is not the best, but actually giving stability decay and agenda impact on the nobility, so you can more easily take stuff through your parliament. So you'll be looking at satisfaction gives as little as possible influence, and obviously then stacking the bonuses that you're looking for, especially when it comes to the societal values that you want to shape over time with these privileges, like centralization. I often just also look to just avoid specific societal values that might not be of use for me. Like here for the clergy, you see there's also 5%, 25%, so that's perfect. Why giving efficiency of the cabinet? I would even say that the burghers estate is the easiest to get them really high satisfaction equilibrium, because they have plenty of this kind of privileges with low percentage of the power given to them, while plenty of satisfaction. That's why, for example, you see my burghers here have almost 100 of satisfaction equilibrium. And the question is also always, okay, so how much do I give them to these privileges? Well, you generally want to have at least maximum taxation for that specific estate achieved, while keeping their estate satisfaction at least at 50%. Like here I have for the commoners, you see, with being at 50%, I pretty much tax them as much as possible. So I gave them enough privileges to achieve that. Of course, you might also sometimes get their satisfaction beyond 50%, or be able to give them satisfaction beyond 50%, like here I did for the burghers. Also keep in mind that, if the estate's power is like 5% and you give them a bunch of privileges increasing their power by, let's say, 300%, so that would be an insane amount of the privileges, they're not gonna take over the country because their base power was 5%, right? Especially if it comes to the commoners, when their power is even like 1% or less, plenty of privileges are not gonna just immediately make it 100%. And the other way around, when the base power of a state like a nobility is 50%, any privilege is gonna make it much higher. So have that in mind when you're planning, right, giving the estate privileges, that the weaker the estate is, the more you can give to them to tax them more and get more bonuses from their satisfaction. From some other quick notes, granting an estate privileges is taking 5 of your government powers, so republican tradition, legitimacy, etc. So do have that in mind if you want to give a lot of privileges at once. And taking a privilege is gonna give you a massive hit on your stability, where the cost is not that complex of a calculation, but there's a lot of tooltips you see I have to use. The base cost of stability is 400 to take an estate privilege, which is then decreased by their power. So if their power is 50%, it's gonna cost you 200 to take down a privilege, which then is impacted by various modifiers, like you having high crown power, or you stacking plenty of advances. The easiest way to get down the cost of taking down privileges is going towards communalism societal value, which as you see at maximum is decreasing that cost by 50%, and also later into the game there will be another societal value unlocked, absolutism, that's gonna further decrease that cost. So when you play as countries that have really bad estate privileges you want to get rid of, do stack these societal values. Okay, at the end I wanted to share with you a few key tips on how to get different stuff done. So first of all, making sure that your leaders are from the crown is gonna get you a total share of 25% of power. That depends on what estate over the crown. Ideally it's a crown. The specific commanders are giving you. So for example, share of land leaders 25%, share of the admirals is another 25%. So you can get 50% bonus to your crown from it. Obviously easy in early game when you have one stack for each. A bit later into the game is gonna be harder when you have like 10-20 stacks to get a right share, because it's always gonna be a share of 25%. It is gonna be the same case with your cabinet members. Like the share of the power you get from the cabinet members is again 25%. So if you make sure all of them are from the crown, this one is gonna be much harder, especially if you want to get good stats. The total share of the power is 25%. But this might be very useful for some ad hoc changes of your crown power to make it higher. Then again, your ruler's ability is gonna impact the amount of the crown power you get. You can temporarily increase it through the parliament issues. I think there's plus 50% of the bonus that you can get for the duration of the parliament. As mentioned earlier, over time you're getting more and more advances giving you crown power, as well as buildings like the earlier mentioned counting house that you can build in any urban location. Another tip, do make sure that I would usually not tax clergy, they don't bring much money. Why? They give you a massive bonus to your research progress speed, and it's not also anywhere in the UI that when the loyalty of the estates beyond 80%, they'll give you the positive buildings. And especially it's useful with the burghers when they have rights to build roads to just improve them for you, as roads are very expensive, right? But yeah, this is an ABC guide for the estates management. And let me know what new you learned through this video, and of course if there's anything crucial that I missed, because I'm sure I missed something. The game is still very complex, I'm also still learning it, but what I shared today is pretty much my ABC knowledge about it, how I do manage the estates, and of course this knowledge should be used for you to shape your estates, maybe even differently some of the games, because it will really depend on your goals and your situation, on which path you take, right? Which bonuses you stack, which estates is the strongest, how much of crown power you get, and it's also gonna shape differently through the whole game. But the knowledge that I shared with you today obviously should help you to make decisions by yourself. For today, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to get notified about the next guides in the future. Let me know what guides I should do in the future, and I'm gonna see you soon.